Showtime.
For the big screen mainstream actors today.
Well, so Doug, here's a question. How can you tell the difference between a girl and that?
All right. Welcome to the Tech School Podcast powered by DSDT. I'm Josh.
Cryptolos.
That's his name, and he's sticking with it.
Just for this episode.
Well, 2 episodes in. All right, season 4 underway, episode 2. Yes. Carlos, how's it going, my good friend?
It's going today. How are you?
It's going well. It's a beautiful day in Metro Detroit. It's sunny. We'll take it.
I wouldn't know. I haven't been out.
Oh, you've been in the
been
studio all day.
All day, trying to make it happen. And it seems nothing ever happens the way you want it to happen. You ever have those experiences?
Oh, yeah.
So here I am in the throes of just trying to force it. Just, make it happen even though it doesn't want to.
Hey, but we are here. We have a good show underway. It's been a lot going on in the tech world for sure.
Absolutely. One of the biggest things I have of issue is what is going on in Buffalo. Just want to know what's going on in Buffalo. I used to live in Buffalo. Don't know if you know the story. I'll tell you a little bit about it.
Please share.
Once upon a time, used to want to be a rap star. You guys know I wanted to be a rapper, right? Wanted to be a rapper. So 19 years old, I'm in Buffalo, New York. There's this island called Grand Isle. Grand Isle is where your boy Rick James and his crew used to make a lot of their top hits.
Okay.
So the person I ended up living with there on Grand Isle and working at the Cotton Club on the east side of Buffalo was a lady by the name of Candy Newkirk, which was a girlfriend of Marvin Gaye. Yeah, I know I'm getting deep right now, but follow me. I got a story.
Yeah.
And so, living in Buffalo for a couple of years, I got to know the lay of the land and actually love it. Buffalo is much akin to like a Detroit. You have everything that's on the other side of Bailey Ave that's considered to be, Black Town for all intents and purposes. And then you have your Grand Isle, which would be like your Grosse Pointe Shores.
Okay.
And so when I saw what unfolded the other day, I automatically was back to when I was 19 in Buffalo. It bothers me so much to have something like that happen in a community, when so much is happening in the world. Why? I think it's a question that we have to continue to ask ourselves and try to figure out how do we kind of change the discussion or the narrative to be more positive. I thought we had kind of gotten past some of this over the last couple of years after who was out of office.
Yeah.
And I thought we were going to dial it back. We were going to become more civil with one another. But it seems as if a lot of the energy is taking a tide in the negative direction.
You raised the question, Carlos. You would have thought a pandemic and civil unrest would have changed things.
Absolutely. It seems as if it only stroked the flames even more. So I don't understand what possesses a person to do some of the things that they do. I'm a firm believer that if you can deal with the consequences of the action, then go for it. Go for it. But I don't believe that the younger generation truly understand the consequences that they're faced with after they do some of this dumb, and excuse me, I just got to say it, some of this dumb stuff. So
horrific stuff.
Horrific as it is. And then, you have those conversations that want to steer the conversation towards the tech industry. Well, the tech knew that this was happening. They should, monitor a lot of it. I don't know. I mean, I don't understand.
We're hearing reports here and there. He may have been on the list of to watch. for the past year, going back to last June. We're hearing things of that nature, and it alludes to your point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't understand though. How can we hold tech companies responsible for that? I don't.
No, you can't. Because at the end of the day, it wasn't the tech company that made this individual go out and commit this heinous act.
Absolutely, it wasn't. I want to ask where the mom and daddy was, flat out. Where was the mother and the daddy? Because I know for a fact that my grandma wouldn't let me get away with certain things as a kid, and held me very responsible for some of the actions and the consequences that later became of them.
And alluding to your point as well, Karlos, about tech companies and putting pressure on them. I mean, no tech company could have imagined this individual would have driven to Buffalo, New York, into a predominantly Black community, go inside of a grocery store or go to a grocery store parking lot and then go inside and kill as many people as possible.
Never would have.
Grocery store?
Never. And and I gotta say it. Y'all know I'm gonna say it because I always say it, right? But so I was talking to my wife about this morning, and I just gotta say it. I gotta say it. I don't care whose shows it is. Good thing it's Karlos and Josh right now. But what I don't get is how is it time and time again these young men are being afforded the luxury of capture, right? Now, I'll be honest. I just got pulled over the other night by the police because I had a headlight out and I was shaking in my boots. I mean, you just hear so many stories about African-American males who receive a bullet because simply they got pulled over and reached for their license or their insurance. Now, you guys know I'm not one for the racial, conversation as a whole, but I just call it as it is. How many times do we have mass hysteria, mass shootings in this form? Do I have to remind you of Kenosha, Wisconsin? How many times do these young fellows get to go and shoot up the place in their fatigue and they get caught and just taken to jail? I just want to know, because me and my community, we are having a hard time just driving at times, as opposed to being afforded the luxury of walking into anybody's church, anybody's crowd, anybody's anything with a loaded handgun, rifle, AR, whatever, and captured. We're not afforded that. So I think more needs to be said about that conversation, about the policing of neighborhoods, the policing of individuals. And as we begin to have those conversations, maybe some of this systematic whatever begins to work itself out in the wash. That's my 2 cents on it, right?
It's a very strong 2 cents. And it also comes down to full transparency on every single case.
Yeah.
Every single case.
As it should be. Right?
As far as police training, more mental evaluation is needed.
Yeah.
When people are going through the academy, what is their temperament? What do they think about certain situations? And it's not to justify, you shoot this person and you take this one into custody. It's not that, but it is raising the question of, there seems to be a trend. Maybe not every single time, but it's noticeable to where you would bring up the points you just laid out.
I don't know. I'm just going to listen.
You're not the only one who is saying it. I was at the gym yesterday.
Okay.
After working out in the sauna, just guys hanging out, having a casual conversation.
In the sauna?
Yeah.
What?
I mean, you go to a gym, you have a sauna.
I'm sorry.
That's beside
carry on,
point,
carry
Karlos.
on, carry on, please.
The point
I
is,
like where
Karlos,
this is going.
All right. The point is, Karlos, this came up in conversation. Everything you just laid out, I felt like I spoke about it the other day, almost verbatim. And there is also a belief where, look, if you don't comply, look, first and foremost, what happened is horrific. We know that.
Right.
All of the mass shootings are horrific. We know that. The point you're getting at is you're driving, I'm driving somewhere. If we so much as try to state our claim, then we are potentially putting our lives in danger.
Yeah.
Versus someone who doesn't look like us, and you hate to say have the luxury. I don't know of any other word. I'm trying to think of a better word to use at the moment, but I can't.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, are able to go and commit these heinous acts, and there's a 50-50 chance they'll be taken into custody and go through the process.
Listen, hold on. Let me bag you up for a second.
Yeah.
Because we can do this for hours, right?
We could.
Now, everybody knows my story, and I don't shy away from it,
Yeah.
right? Having the background that I had, last run-in I had with the police, I got my leg broke.
Did you shoot at police?
I didn't shoot nobody, right? I didn't hit nobody. It wasn't a domestic. It wasn't anything. It was a property crime narrative, right? My leg was broken by 4 police officers. And yet we're talking about this particular young man who went in and shot, was it 13?
He killed 10 people.
He killed 10.
And injured several others.
Come on now.
Many elderly.
Come on.
Putting their groceries in the trunk of their car.
And yet he was afforded to be walked into the jail and standing down in his straitjacket for arraignment. I mean, fair is fair. I'm not saying that maybe his leg should have got broken. I'm not saying it. I'm just saying that justice seems as though it's just us.
And again, you're not justifying anything in particular, but you are laying out a trend that is noticeable.
I mean,
now we don't have stats to back this up, but the eye is the eye.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
You have the young man up in Grand Rapids, you know, got arrested, said that his blood alcohol level was, 3 times the legal limit. So what? He was drunk, right?
Nevertheless, shot in the back of the head is shot in the back of the head.
Shot in the back of the, wrestled to the ground and shot in the back of the head. Who did he kill? Didn't kill nobody.
No.
He wasn't out at a rally protecting property, so-called the Kenosha, Wisconsin shooting. He wasn't out looking for trouble. He didn't have a gun, and yet he was killed. I mean, we can tell this story time and time and time.
Well,
Arbery.
The fear is we're going to tell this story again. That's the fear.
So
that's
sad.
Probably the reality.
So sad, but so true. So sad, so sad. And again, this conversation may seem as it has a lot of racial connotation, but it's not. It's one that it's very well needed. I don't care what the platform, what the forum is. It's no different than the Will Smith smack heard around the world. Everybody's talking about it.
Yes.
Whether it be your church synagogue or whether it be, your barbershop or whether it be your daycare, everybody's talking about it. So why not here as well? Right? Again, the question becomes whether or not technology companies are implicit in what becomes of some of these mass scenarios. I don't, I tend to think not necessarily the case. I don't want to hold them responsible for what's being posted and that they should be dialing it down. No different as, I should hold Smith & Wesson responsible because they made whatever the weapon was that he legally had access to be able to go and do this type of carnage. I can't say that. Who knows what happens in the minds of those that seek to do this type of havoc. At the end of the day, I think we all can just simply agree that we need to be more responsible about ourselves and our houses. Period.
Let's get this show rolling, brother. Even deeper, bring a good guest into the conversation.
Absolutely. Well, he's no stranger from these here streets, right? He's been with us before.
Yeah,
I think he's been with us.
Yeah,
before.
I think he's been around here once or twice.
Right, and
good brother.
Right, and so today we're going to have a special guest,
Robert Courtney.
Robert Courtney is no stranger to the conversation at hand. Robert Courtney has a lot of insight as it would be in regards to tech companies,
Mm-hmm.
as well as dealing with the tragedies of what life unfolds before you and how you're able to reestablish oneself after that. So I really wanted to have this conversation with Rob today and just get his thought on the way of the things are being handled and how we're beginning to move or should begin to move forward. So without further ado, why don't we bring on Mr. Rob Courtney?
Hey, good afternoon, Rob. That's how it is at times. I mean, you can't ignore what's happening in the world. And actually, and Carlos, he just alluded to a great point. We're gonna get your perspective as well. You've heard us converse just now. Share your thoughts.
It's sad, but you guys kind of talked about it. It's sad, but it's becoming such a regular occurrence. I remember during COVID when everything was happening. I mean, the country was just in a complete uproar, and I remember having a conversation with Ashley like, this is something that I don't think will ever be controlled. Like, I don't think this is something that there to be a solution or a fix. But the reality is, I think individually, as families, as the ones who are trying to psychologically kind of deal with the aftermath and the trauma of it, I think the better route is understanding how you're going to handle the situation and what is the best course of action for you. Because I don't think there's a solution or a way that things get better as far as the world goes. And that's just my personal opinion.
Wow.
That's real.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of
It would be nice if there was some signs. Like, there's no indications. Like, there has been no indicators to me that there's a plan or progress happening where it gives hope. And so I think from a black male perspective, I just think we have to be better at our own mental health. We have to be better at our own dialogue and our own course of action to keep us mentally able to sustain, our situations. Because if we're thinking about it from like, how can we fix this? Like, I think that's going down the rabbit hole that has no end, personally. So
I agree.
that's going back
1000%.
well before we were here.
And so, okay, and I know we got a whole list of things to get into with the world renowned Mr. Courtney, but that's so true, right? I'm sitting here as you're speaking, and I remember picking my brain before, like, okay, so we have this thing called the Constitution. Everybody's heard of it. If you haven't, United States owns it, right? It's what created the United States. But tell me, for all intents and purposes, how the hell I get subject to it? I don't get that. So you're telling me that these 12 old white guys with wigs sat around and drew this thing up, and here we are so many hundreds of years later that all these institutions are built upon it, and I'm subject to it. I don't get that, man. I don't get it. I never have gotten it. And I think that that is part of the reason we have all this systematic discrimination as a whole.
yes, I mean, foundationally, it is flawed. That's like you decide to build a house on a foundation that is not strong. Like, what do you expect when it continues to crumble or continue to have problems over time? So, I mean, from the root and the foundation of the system that we operate on, there's very clear errors in that. And so when these things happen, it shouldn't really be surprising, just to be completely transparent. Like, I feel like we should expect there to be issues that make no sense.
I agree. 1,000%. 1,000%. Well, okay, so switching the conversation over, what's going on in the grand world of Mr. Rob Courtney? Now, for all intents and purposes, can you give the people a little bit back knowledge about who you are, what it is you do, and the greater good of it all?
You're definitely a sneakerhead.
The way that I do that is through an agency called Robert Courtney and Associates. It is a digital marketing agency that helps people communicate on social media platforms better. Usually our clientele is businesses, brands, sometimes it's individuals. But at the end of the day, we are typically taking the concept or message or an idea, and we are giving them strategically the best path to make it or create an awareness around that company or that person. And that's basically what we do every day. It started off as a one-man army in myself, and now I've grown it. We have about 13 people that work for us, five people that work basically full-time. Content creators that assist in bringing these ideas and these stories to life, and it's going very well. Everybody's in this mindset of creating and building something. With the emergence of social media, we have direct access to consumers, and so because of that, there's been a lot of successful entrepreneurs and a lot of successful brands that have used social media as the primary tool to drive sales and create success. And so we've been fortunate enough to be a part of that for a lot of companies in Metro Detroit.
So, Rob, when you started out, did you go to school or anything for communications, digital, whatever the heck, or how did all of this just come about?
So I started off as a barber in Detroit, 2004. Got an opportunity to get ownership in that barbershop in 2007. And then by 2008, I realized really quickly I didn't want any more barbershops. And so I wanted to figure out a way I could maximize the company and the brand that I had at that time without having to open up more brick and mortar stores. And so the way I did that was by launching a fashion company, a lifestyle brand called Unique Collection. And we used 100% social media activations to create awareness and to drive sales for that company. That was my training ground. There was no schooling at that time. And it was a legit trial and error process of learning all the ins and outs of social media, starting with Facebook, starting with MySpace, then heading over to Facebook, heading to Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, so on and so forth. And so the stuff that I love, the navigating of these platforms, the research of these platforms, going to conferences, those things that I love, that I do every single day, is the things that a lot of people hate. And so I found my niche, like I found my groove, and I realized like this information is available to everybody, but no one wants to go and find it out on their own. And so I've literally built this brand basically on a premise of I'm willing to do research that the average person isn't willing to do to find answers, and that's been my schooling. And so now we begin to create resources and tools and different things that can help individuals who want to learn. And obviously now there's tons of digital marketing that exists. You guys do a phenomenal job at DSDT, but in the early days, you were hard pressed to find resources that could teach you the things that we were doing on a daily basis.
Robert, as an influencer, give people the top 3 do's and don'ts.
Top 3 do's and don't is don't try to be someone that you're not. The worst thing you can do as an influencer is create a perception that isn't authentic and things that you don't organically and actually love. Because a couple things happen. One, you build a following that is not connected to you on an authentic level. Two, if it does take off, now you're stuck in a box that you don't even like personally. And then you have people reaching out to you to connect with an audience that's not your real audience, or not an audience that's authentic to what you believe in and the things that you like. So that's the number one don't. Definitely don't do things that you don't necessarily love. Number two, you must engage with your audience. The biggest thing that a brand looks for is an influencer who has real influence. And in order to have real influence, that means there has to be communication and dialogue with the people that follow you, the people that like you. They like to feel like there's a connection. And the more of a connection you have with your audience, the more you can influence them to buy a product, use a service, etc. We could probably go on and on about do's and don'ts, but I would probably say those are the top two. Don't be someone that you're not, and definitely create strong connections with the audience that you have.
All right. Give me like one or two top do's. What should people do to become an authentic influencer?
I think you have to understand that with social media now, building thousands and thousands of followers is no longer a barrier of entry for becoming an influencer. So don't set out on this mission to amass a ton of followers. Do take the following that you have, if your goal is to be an influencer, and just make sure you build genuine relationship with them. So if that's 100 people, or if it's 100,000 people, just make sure that the connection is based on real relationships that you've cultivated over time, whether that's through your content or groups that you've nurtured on Facebook or Instagram or what have you. And so those are two more do's and don'ts.
Wow.
All right.
That's good. That's good. You remind me of the time I was speaking to another sneakerhead. I won't say his name, but I wanted to take him on as a client to help with some of his social media activity. And he said to me, he said, well, how can you do that when you don't have as many followers as I do? And I looked, and I probably had like 8,000 or something on Facebook. And he said, yeah, you have dismal. And I looked at him as stern as I could, and I said, that's exactly why you need me, right? That's exactly why you need me, because you think that I don't care if you have 8 million followers.
It's artificial.
It's nothing to do with the way that the platforms actually operate.
And let's keep in mind, people can buy followers. People buy followers all the time.
We don't even want to go there, but
it's worth mentioning,
right?
Since we're on the topic, people buy followers quite a bit.
Why? Because that's a way to influence and manipulate people all the way.
It's a perception.
Yeah, perception.
Yeah, it's a perception, and also, Fashion Nova bought 50,000 followers. Like, it's documented. This conversation that happens all the time. Their original followers were all purchased. Fashion Nova is one of the largest online distributors in the game right now, and they don't have to buy followers anymore.
Right.
It accomplished what their strategic purpose was. And if you want to look at it from a strategy standpoint, if you're running ads and spending money into the platform, like, essentially you are buying acquisitions, which is followers. So it depends on what lens you're looking through, how you want to view that. But the reality of the situation is the algorithm is no longer designed for growth. It's not 2010 or 11 anymore, where you can put out organic content and expect to go viral easily or expect consistent growth over time. So from that standpoint, the consumer, your general audience, is operating from a framework that anybody can go on social media and amass thousands of followers.
Yeah.
And that is no longer true.
Okay.
That's not the case anymore.
I'm going to use myself as an example real quick on my Instagram page. And I was at the Selfie Museum in downtown Detroit. And it was just something about this that just grabbed my attention. And it's alluding to your point, Rob, of you have to be genuine. I don't know if you can make it out, but it says the prettiest girls come from Detroit.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just like, yeah, the prettiest girls in the world come from Detroit. And I'm looking at it and I'm saying, that is 100%. So my photographer, he just caught me in that candid moment.
Okay.
Looking at this message at the Selfie Museum. This is the most likes I've got on my Instagram page, where nearly 6,000 people liked it. But then even more so, it was shared 7,000 times.
Nice.
And it was just something organic. Your point. It was just organic, not trying to do something that seemed cool. Heck, I'm just looking at this message. Yeah, the hottest girls are from Detroit. That's what it is.
You caught a moment that clearly resonated with thousands of people because it was authentic, and that's the hardest part of social media. I think everyone is constantly creating content for self-gratification. You know, it's not really about the person looking, it's about the way us feel. And at the end of the day, it should be about how you're making other people feel.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that post is an example of, you know, you sharing something that's resonating way beyond yourself. You know, it's about how you feel about your city
Mm-hmm.
and the women that is in the city. And clearly they feel the same way. We feel the same way.
As they should.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, is it because sex sells? I'm just asking a question. As inquiring minds want to know.
I think that's deeper. I think that one is a little deeper.
It's a little deeper. It's paying homage.
Okay. All right. Speaking of accounts, Josh has on his Instagram roughly about 12, almost 13K. Is that good, Rob, or is there anything? Give us some tips.
Absolutely. You can't really talk to me about numbers because I'm so ingrained in the data.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as I know you are too, Carlos. But like, I know 100,000 followers. The impact of a person that has those followers could be the exact same of a person that has 1,000 followers in real life.
Right.
You know, so because I understand that and I see it every day, the followers don't really matter from an agency standpoint. And when brands have conversations about, you know, every brand is having a conversation about how can I find. And they want to immediately look at the numbers, and I have to give them the real data before they make the decision solely based on that. You know, so yeah, 12,000 is great, but in the big scheme of things, like it could be a phenomenal 12,000. He could be the perfect fit, or he could not be the perfect fit, depending on the brand and what they're trying to accomplish. So, or even how you're using your own followers in your own community.
Mm-hmm.
If Josh has 12,000 followers on Instagram, but he's never there, he's never commenting, he's never engaging, he's spending all his time on Facebook, then the Instagram following isn't really impactful. Like it's just people sitting there. I think from a personal brand standpoint, the goal should always be how do we create messaging across multiple platforms that funnel to one destination so that database and that audience could be nurtured and developed so that it could lead to some type of transactional opportunity. And what that transactional opportunity is would be defined based on what that person is trying to accomplish. And so those are my thoughts.
Okay, so here's a great time for this segue, right? in our social media news, we have a few topics. And the first topic in particular is about, well, we actually just covered a lot of this, right?
Yeah.
About what are your takes as far as tech companies having somewhat of responsibility in what has happened, not just this time around, but each and every time it does happen? Do you think that tech companies should be on the hook for that?
Is that for me?
That's for Rob.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So it's a tough call. You know, like, should tech companies influence these type of things? 1,000%. Like, there is no doubt that if Facebook is the same. If Meta, Twitter, whoever's the owner of that at this moment, you know, if these organizations and platforms made a concerted effort to control the narrative, be more about stopping these type of actions and doing, like, yeah, for sure. Like, we are literally programmed from what's happening on our phone. Like, whether we want to admit it or not. Like, once upon a time, there was a conversation about bad music and like the lyrics in music and how it encouraged sexuality and more kids and like kids doing drugs and violence, because that's how we were programmed for so long. Social media is our new programming, and whether we want to admit it or not, subconsciously we are behaving based on what the 5 to 10 closest people around us are doing in most scenarios. So yes, if the tech companies created a plan and were intentional about doing things to help solve some of these world issues, then yeah, I think it would have a huge impact. Do I feel like it's Mark Zuckerberg's responsibility to do that? That's where it gets, you know, if all of a sudden I amass a certain amount of power to control and influence individuals, then hopefully I take it upon myself as just a good human being to do it.
But doesn't that fame, doesn't that fortune in many ways automatically make you an influencer? Because people are looking at everything you do, everything you say.
Yes, definitely.
I'm kind of pivoting the conversation a tad bit. I was with a number of gentlemen, Calvin Johnson, Andre Rison, Braylon Edwards, Darren McCarty, for an event on mental health. And the concept was to bring people who are in the public eye to sit down and talk about mental health. Now, we can sit down and listen to 5 doctors who tell us the same thing as these gentlemen did, but we're not listening to the doctors. We're listening to the guys who are in the public eye, who have the money, who have the spotlight, because they are the influencers. So it's just a part of reality where we listen to a Mark Zuckerberg. We listen to an Elon Musk before we listen to law enforcement, before we listen to a psychiatrist. That's just the, go ahead.
I feel like Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, yes, they are influencers. I feel the power is in how they're regulating what comes through on the platforms and not themselves, right? So like, if Mark Zuckerberg said something, yeah, it would bring, like, it would make news headlines, but does it change how an individual behave? Like, I personally don't think so.
In this case, it's more so their actions.
Sorry, I didn't.
In this case, it's more so their actions.
Exactly. Or how they're leading their companies and the things that they are putting in place to control what happens on the platform. We know Facebook was caught, like, Facebook has had to change their business practices and the framework of their company based on what they did in the election and how they skewed the election in favor of Donald Trump, right? Like, that's well documented. You know, there's I forget the documentary that basically broke the entire thing down of how we are basically manipulated through content that they control. And so they have the power to control the content. Like that's that's what people have to know.
Good old
The
algorithm.
algorithm is designed specifically for the intent purposes of what the company wants to accomplish.
And you know what?
So
I think that kind of goes into exactly what was going on with Musk. Now, the report today is that Musk is saying that, listen, the deal is halted until you guys can prove that you don't have more than 5% of bots on the platform. So
they won't be able to prove that because all the platforms have way more percent than that.
right. Which
So, I mean, it's big business. Like we just talked about this with the brands. They're buying followers to create perception.
yeah.
They're allowing thousands and thousands of fake accounts to be created because it gives them more ability to maneuver from a money standpoint. Like it's super simple when you can go and confirm or deny who's a fake account and who's not. How many people have multiple accounts? You know what I'm saying? Like we can create 20, 30 accounts ourselves and not manage any of them, and then Facebook can put out reports that they have billions of followers or billions of connections.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so like that they're not going to be able to prove that.
Wow. Point well taken. Listen, Rob, I think this is a good time for us to kind of take a pause in the broadcast, pay a bill, because while we have you here, I mean, I know that you are so busy, your time is of value. I would love for us to just pay a quick bill and come back and pick up on this conversation right where we are. All right? So let's pause for a moment and we'll be right back.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Josh.
I'm Carlos, better known as Crypto Los.
This is the Tech School podcast powered by DSDT.
I just made up Crypto Los in case you didn't.
And that's exactly what this is. It's a great season. Season 4, we're back in the building, side by side.
If you haven't checked out the podcast, make sure that you go to it wherever you get your podcast from.
But in the meantime, see ya.
Hello, I'm Jason Stemmer. I served 5 years as a combat engineer in the United States Army. In the summer of 2019, I joined DSDT to learn advancing technologies in computer support, networking, cybersecurity, many valuable tools in digital media. DSDT is partnered with a lot of veteran-friendly employers, and with the help of DSDT's job placement assistance, I was able to quickly begin work in the IT field. I'm very pleased with this direction, as there is unlimited potential in the technology field, with no signs of growth or demand ever slowing. So come in for a visit, take a tour, and schedule a meeting with an advisor. DSDT really changed my life for the better, and it can change yours.
At a Detroit School for Digital Technology, we strive to provide students who are willing to learn new and exciting skill sets with a quality education in cutting-edge film technology to include recording in HD and 4K formats, drone videography, editing, and state-of-the-art color grading. Our instructors are friendly, knowledgeable industry professionals who are willing to teach. For more information, call us at 313-263-4200 or visit us on the web at dsdt.tech.
Good conversation, Rob. Welcome back. Hey, so Rob, let's continue the dialogue here. So what can companies, Twitter, Facebook, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, what can they do to help the cause when it really comes down to it?
Well, I think they have abilities that we don't even necessarily realize, right? So, like, for example, if Facebook wanted to remove conversation around conversations around what happened in Buffalo, right? They could, of course, it should be public knowledge. We should know what's happening, but the continued conversation of it, I feel, will inspire the next person to go do what happened in Buffalo.
Extremists look for attention.
Ongoing conversation is a big part of the issue. So if there's a way to minimize that, this is opinion based, right? But if there's a way to minimize the amount of conversation, as soon as you type in prayers to the people or the families of Buffalo, you're doing a good deed. Like, you are well intentioned in why you just put that out there, but you realize that you just triggered the algorithm to provide you with all the content and the information, the tragedies, the bad horror stories, anything that surrounds that topic. You just triggered the algorithm to serve that up into your newsfeed, which keeps you in a negative state of mind, which impacts your day, impacts your conversation, and it I feel prevents you from moving on into a positive space. You know, like that's my psychological, I guess, analyzation of the situation, and I don't think that's healthy. Like, I just don't think it's a healthy thing for the user on the social media platform. So I think that's one conversation that should be had in terms of how we could limit the mental impact of what these situations and these traumatic actions do for us as a whole.
Listen, I got one question since you put all of that in as you did. Who or what do you subscribe to on social media? Do you follow any specific influencers, accounts? What type of topics are you right now into? Kind of share a little bit, if you will, of that.
So you mean just in general?
Mm-hmm.
So, consistently, there are a few people I follow. Gary Vee is somebody that I've been following for years and years. I basically built the framework of my business based on Gary Vee's blueprint, and so I'm very open about that. Chris Doe, I don't know if you guys ever heard of Chris Doe.
No, I haven't.
He is a brilliant mind when it comes to marketing and how to communicate on social media platforms. And so I'm really big into studying behavior of people and how they interact. Like, if I could build a business just solely based on people's reactions, how they think and how they interact online, like, that's what I would probably love to do even more than what I currently do. But he's one of those people that gets very deep into the behavior of individuals across these platforms. And then, you know, there's your Russell Brunsons and your what's the 10X, Grant Cardones, Billie Jean, you know, all the people that basically try to hack the platforms and give information back that most people don't care. Like, they feel like because it's free, it's not valuable. But I listen to all the information and all the nuggets and try to apply that to the businesses that I try to help.
What up? What's up? Listen, I know you didn't have a lot of time today, and I am so grateful and thankful that you took out a few more moments to come and bless us, and just being respectful of your time. If there's anything, one thing that you wanted to share with the community, because I know you have a tendency to watch these as they're showing up in your feed. What is the one thing that you would like to submit right here today with the community that we serve?
You said submit?
Cement, all of that.
In green.
Say the question one more time, make sure I understand.
Is there anything that you would like, a nugget that you would like to give our community in regards?
I would say, from a business standpoint, I'll give a nugget from a business standpoint, and that's if you are thinking about building a brand, regardless of the industry, regardless of the vertical, regardless of who you're trying to appeal to, don't focus so much on the business itself. Focus on your personal brand. Share as much about yourself as you possibly feel comfortable with doing. and that will impact and grow your business 10 times more than anything that you were thinking about sharing as far as the actual business goes.
Wow.
That's
Wow. Wow.
Okay. Powerful.
Now, I know you got to go, but I got to challenge.
Oh.
I got to challenge you. So what happens when I build my personal brand, you know, and something happens to me, God forbid, and I'm not the Kentucky Fried Chicken Colonel Sanders anymore. There's nobody like me. Should I be investing as much time and energy into the personal brand exclusively of the business?
I 100% believe so. If we're talking about growing your brand as fast as you can, if you're trying to get your brand grown as fast as possible using social media, building your personal brand is the absolute fastest way to do that. If you are worried about, you know, what happens as you grow and you being the focal point, then the responsibility becomes growing a team and allowing that team to be as good as you, get them to a point where they are as good as you. And as the team gets better, the brand gets better, and you slowly become lesser than the brand itself.
Well, it also comes down to a simple concept, and not trying to hold you on, Robert.
Yeah,
but it comes down to a simple concept of entrepreneurs have a responsibility to invest in future entrepreneurs. That's just what it comes down to. Period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Listen, Rob, thank you. Listen, thank you. We appreciate you again. A man so humble. I actually met someone last week. I was talking to them about Mr. Courtney, and the person said to me, "Oh man, I can't afford that guy." I said, "What?"
That's a good problem.
What? I said, "Who, Rob?" Right? Exactly. My point exactly. Rob, thank you for taking our time today. We appreciate you. We love you in our community, and we look forward to having you back again, my friend.
I appreciate you guys. Y'all keep doing a great job.
Thank
All
you,
right,
brother. Fire. Right on.
Hey, now he gone now, right? He gone. So I'm going. Hey, you guys don't follow Rob a lot like I do. I see his feed all the time. He's in my Instagram. I wake up in the morning. I go to sleep at night. Every time I look around, Rob is posting something in my feed. Good God. And so, you know, tragedy struck him last year, really something horrible. And I see he doesn't really get into it. And I know that he posts a lot on his social channels. And forever and a day, I'm always amazed at his resilience. I always am, man, because I don't know how he does it.
Well, how you handle adversity explains who you really are. It shows who you really are.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you hands down.
Because when it's all good, it's all good.
Right.
But when your back up is against the wall, when you're going through hard times and you're able to lift yourself up and keep going, you saw in his background, keep going no matter what.
You saw that too, didn't you?
I saw that.
And all those sneakers. I mean, you sit there.
And you know, I started to ask him about that. But I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah.
It may have touched on something he really didn't want to talk about at the moment.
Yeah.
But now I see why.
Yep.
Keep going no matter what. And that shows who you are as an individual.
So my mindset, and I want to be as respectful and selective in my words, right? My mindset in losing a loved one would be the same approach that I respectfully give to him. And that is, if I want to talk about it, cool, let's talk about it, right? But otherwise, hey, I'm still me, right? I'm dealing with those things, and let's put those over here. Let's just do us.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and that's the kind of space that I'm in with my brother.
Absolutely.
You know,
I mean, losing a loved one, it changes you. It just does. And
who you telling?
Oh,
keep living, young fella.
I've lost a few in the past 3 years, so I'm very much aware. But the friendship you and Robert have it comes to the point of, you know, when you lose a loved one, again, it changes you. And those who are truly there for you, they recognize how it's changed you, they accept it, and they support you for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. At the end of the day, and I always tell my wife too, I mean, hey man, I love that guy. That guy is the walking truth, you know, and he's very articulate, you know, very well, keen, mannered. I mean, just a real gem. So, you know, it does everyone great to go to anything that Rob has. You know, he does the branding for beginners, and he works with a number of companies around this, well, actually around the nation. And, you know, anything that you might be able to grab a hold of his, you should, because he is definitely a jewel that needs to be tapped. Again, the person I spoke to last week said that he's too expensive. So I just want y'all to know that, okay? Keep that in mind as you're going to talk to him and thinking you're going to get a freebie.
As you enter in negotiations.
Oh, yeah. Great episode. Great episode. Another one.
Indeed. And more to come.
Absolutely.
All right. That will do it for the Tech School podcast powered by DSDT. For Karlos, I'm Josh. See ya.